Hey, it's Chris with Games. Let's do this. So, let's just talk news. Now, again, like last time's news, this is going to be a little bit of a mix, a little bit of crowdfunding, but also a very hefty amount of retail. And so a little bit for everyone. And there are some relatively big things. There's a little bit of everything across the board. As always, if you like this, smash the up button, smash the like button, and help it tell other people that, I'm worth watching once in a while. That's all I got for the preamble. It's been a long week. Let's do this. First up, we have the Great Wall. This is actually getting, as this says right here, a reprint. So if you missed it the first time around, this Awaken Realms worker placement, which I think has people somewhat divided and somewhat, liking it, but also wondering how it fits into their collections, as it's more of a potential cooperative worker placement, if you have any interest in that. Now, again, there has been no date announced. There is no date on here, but it was literally just announced the day of me filming this, I believe, and there's already 2,000 people following this project. So I would imagine that this is probably going to be their next big one. And since we haven't heard anything else, that's probably a pretty safe assumption at this point. And it looks like they're going to be reprinting everything that you got the first time around, including the stretch goals. So you haven't seen that a lot from Awakened Realms. We haven't seen that a lot from most of the big companies. And so it's really interesting to see what they're going to do, and are they going to give new stuff? We'll see. I mean, you have here the 5th player expansion, the Genghis Khan, and the Rat Pack. I don't know if any of those are actually new, but I don't think so. So if you're really interested, you just need to check it out, follow it, because they'll obviously have some updates beforehand, and people are really liking it, though. I mean, I think there was a lot of concern that it was going to be bloated, and they did the miniature version as well as the meeple version, so you can get the one that suits you, but overall, it's been a pretty positive reception, I think, and people have been clamoring for it on the secondary market, which again is an interesting aspect because the only thing we've really seen that from Awakened Realms, I believe, is the Nemesis Lockdown. So again, is this going to be a trend of things to come from Awakened Realms? Let's find out. Next up, this is the other big one that just got announced. My City, the Nizia legacy game, tile laying, is getting a sequel, I guess you would call it. And that's because this is My Island from Nizia. And this is going to be, instead of square-based, this is going to be hex-based. Competitive, legacy-based game over 24, they say this time, rounds, or gameplay sessions, if you will, that you're going to morph your board into something that is going to be unique at the end. Now, again, like with My City, is it going to be something that you can replay in the future? And are people actually interested in doing that? I have no idea. I personally have never found that super entertaining from that aspect, like replaying Legacy, but I also haven't played too many Legacy games, full disclaimer there, so I don't really fully have an opinion on it yet, but I guess I'm looking at my copies of Pandemic Legacy 1 and 2 and saying, would I really want to replay just a vanilla-ish version of Pandemic versus like Iberia, which is sitting behind me on the shelf? That's a tough question, but that is going to be coming at some point, I think, late 2022 to retail, and this is through Cosmos, as it says there. Next up, actually, we have an interesting entry, and I'm going to talk about it because it is one of the biggest gateway of all time, and that's Catan. And there's a new game coming to the retail side as called Dawn of Humankind. So we're going back to the prehistoric era. But as you can see here on the graphic on the video, that's about all we know. It's going prehistoric. It's going back, it says, in the roots of Africa. So how is this going to be different? What else is it going to add? Is it going to add another layer? The last one that I actually got excited about for Catan was Game of Thrones, and that did not turn out well, the show or the game. So take that for what you will, but it's a big name, and so we got to talk about it and mention it. The next one that got sort of all the rave last year in the conventions towards the end of the year was the new deck builder from Renegade. Renegade's put out a lot of deck builders lately, but this one is the Hunger from Richard Garfield. You may have heard of him once or twice. And this one is, you're a vampire and you're trying to do vampire-y things, right? And so it was sort of met with initial very hot reception. It's cooled off a little bit, but in order to get that hype back up, Renegade Game Studios has just announced a new expansion called, and I love the pun, High Stakes. Yes, I love it as a dad. And if you scroll down here, you can see Q3 release, and the stakes have been raised. New event deck, you can now attack, allowing you to defeat new threats, better hunting, and you can attack other vampires as well. So this is also designed to store all of your cards and tokens for the base game as well as the expansion. Yeah, so there we go. Again, 2 to 6 players as well, so maybe increasing the player count. I'm not familiar with what the player count is at the base game. Yeah, 2 to 6, so it doesn't change it at all. But again, if you're a big fan of this, and a few of these games have really, really benefited from expansions, so we'll see if this is going to be another one that helps propel this up higher with a somewhat necessary expansion like other games, you know, I have been prone to get as well. Next, for all you heavy gamers that watch me, I don't know why you're watching me, but this is why you're watching me, probably. Portal Games has recently announced that they are picking up Brazil Imperial, more of a 4X style game on the heavy aspect, and they are bringing it over and porting it to an English language edition. This is a heavy game as a Euro 4X, and there are 7 different actions which you're going to be taking to accomplish building your city and civilization down in Brazil. You can see them over on the Board Game Geek page right here, and deploying, framing, building, renovating, manufacturing, harboring, or trading. You can also explore hidden places and attack other players because, I mean, it's a 4X like I mentioned. Euro X, if you will, as one of the more recent, newer additions to that genre. It's got relatively good ratings for not having too many of them in the first place, and so we'll kind of see how it stands up to the test of time when it's more available in the English language. There you go. Sometime, I believe, in 2022 from Portal Games. It's going to be hitting the North American market, like I said, down here, if you scroll down to Q3. So we're going to see what they can do with it. Does it change? It's a modular map, 8 different scenarios and setups that you can tailor to whatever player count or your style of choice. So again, going to be interesting to see what it does when it makes more waves. There you go. Next up, we have Parks from Keymaster. Keymaster has already made one Parks expansion called Nightfall. Now they're coming out with a second expansion called Wildlife sometime later this summer. Now you're getting new artwork. Well, duh. I mean, that's one of the main attractions for Parks in the first place. It's an absolutely stunning game to look at. But you're also getting a new National Park edition, new gear, new sites, and new wildlife to give you a little bit more that you can blend not only with the base game, but also with combination of the other expansion in the first place. You can already check it out here on the website, but you cannot pre-order it yet. But if you're interested, there you go. You can get notified when it gets released. Now, speaking of expansions, we'll go right into this one. OP Games is putting out, as I talked about last time, they apparently have the Disney license, and they are porting it over to Smash Up as well. If you are a fan of Smash Up, where the very easily accessible fan favorite where you combine 2 decks and try and take over bases with the most victory points, you're going to see a lot of your big name, recognizable Disney icons for everything from Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Wreck-It Ralph, and Big Hero 6, and The Lion King. So a little bit of the newer, a little bit of the older, similar overlap with the Sorcerer's Arena. And it's going to be compatible with all of the other smash-ups that you may already have in your collection. And so it's going to probably entice you sometime in the summer of 2022. Speaking of expansions, let's just go straight to the next one. The next one is Reavers of Midgard. There are rumors, well, not really rumors anymore, there is going to be an expansion for Reavers of Midgard, and obviously if you are a fan of the original Midgard, the Champions of Midgard, you will no doubt know that the expansions took Champions of Midgard from a it's okay to, yeah, this is very good actually, I kind of like it a lot more. And so the question is, with Reavers of Midgard from Grey Fox Games, will it do sort of the same thing? Now, there's only some conversation over on the Board Game Geek forums here that you can check out, and they were talking about the playtesting of the new expansion online, and so there's going to be a few new elements that you can get. So again, not really sure what other details, nothing else from Grey Fox Games yet, so we'll see as more leaks out. I would imagine that this would be crowdfunded just like the original Reavers and Champions. And if they do something along the lines of Champions, are you going to see, again, the deluxeifications and the upgrades or a big box and something along those lines? But if you're interested, there you go. Keep your subscribe button hot on Reavers. Now we have something completely different, and we're going to be talking about this because I'm a big fan of the anime. One Piece is actually getting a TCG. I know I hate TCGs, but this is a really cool IP, and they've done amazing things with this. This thing has been running like, I don't know, like 25 years. And it's still going. It's still going. Things are getting released weekly at this point. And oh, man, this is tempting for me because I don't think there's really ever been a good One Piece game. And it's going to be available, as I said here, 2022 in Japan. But the English edition, who knows? And is it going to be pay to win? Obviously, it's a TCG. But is it still going to tempt me when it comes over to English? Yeah, probably more so. My kids are sort of waning on Pokemon right now, waxing and waning depending on the day, week, month, or if I'm going to buy them something. So we'll see, but this is seriously tempting when it comes to nostalgia and my crossover interest with manga, anime, and everything along those aspects. So in case you're one of those people like me, there you go. Couple more here and we'll head back over to the hotness on Board Game Geek, but I need to talk about this because people have been waiting for this ever since Crusaders was first released, and it is getting a reprint through Renegade Games. I should have just stayed with them and gone back to back earlier. But not only is that really the big news, the better news is the long-awaited Divine Influence expansion is going to be made, including and giving you 4 new Night Orders, fully compatible with the base game from the original Tastery Minstrel games, and you just get new stuff that people have been clamoring for that really like this worker placement game. So if you're one of those people, this should really excite you because I know this has been on people's wish list for a long time. Restoration Games now is releasing or re-releasing a game called Key to the Kingdom. If your nostalgia is there, it's already available and you can buy it right now on their website as a remake. See right there, add to your cart. You're taking on this world again as you go through and explore and you meet new allies, minions, and just try to save the day. So if you're interested from Restoration Games and have some nostalgia, check this out. Last up, before we go back to the Board Game Geek hotness, we have a recent announcement from, I think this is WizKids actually, that we are going to see Fantasy Realms incorporated with a Marvel facelift, if you will. And so we're going to see what they can do. How different is it going to be? Is it going to be akin more to the Love Letters with slight nuances? Is it going to add something to Fantasy Realms? Because Fantasy Realms, as much as I like it, it's a little mathy and it's a little dry at times. And this has a little bit more appeal. But as someone who recently bought Fantasy Realms within the last year, will I have enough difference to actually consider this? I don't know. Especially if it's going to include, though, the Cursed Horde. That might entice me more, because I don't have that yet. But the Marvel IP, how much are we going to see? What are the combinations that you're going to be able to do besides heroes? Well, wait and see, but there you go. Check it out for yourself. Now, the hotness on Board Game Geek right now is a smattering mix of games that are either crowdfunding currently for the most part, or crowdfunding games that are currently in the process of being delivered and people looking at it like the grass is always greener. And so first up, we have the art formerly known as Gaijin. This is Tamashii, which is over on GameFound currently, which has well over $500,000 at the time of me filming this. In fact, they are already almost at $600,000 with just under 2 weeks left. And we're seeing a little bit of what this cyberpunk adventure scenario-based game can bring, both from a cooperative and competitive, and doing the Awakened Realm thing on GameFound as they've done, even though this is the light version as opposed to the big brother. They did not pledge lock miniatures into the content, so you can get that separately if you want one pledge versus the other. $75 is going to get you the core pledge, which is always the best deal if you're interested, and you can check out Rado's video like I've been doing to decide whether or not this is going to be right for me. And if you were one of the early backers, you get this little Owlman expansion as well. So again, if you're really interested in this, I think you should give it a check it out because it's got a little action programming style, upgradable characters, and asymmetry in how you want to react. Now, I'm not a fan necessarily of the competitive, but I think the cooperative is offering something different and new. Is it going to stand the test of time? That's what a lot of these crowdfunding games really raise the question to me right now, and why I have been a little bit more hesitant or gun-shy lately. Speaking of things crowdfunding on GameFound, we're going to talk about Oak because Oak is also on the hotness from Game Brewer. They're also doing relatively well, speaking 6 figures, over $100,000, 16 days left at this point. Now, the main difference is you're getting a deluxe version right now, and so that's going to be one of the biggest reasons whether or not you like that. And that's a whole nother side conversation because I've got a very interesting tangent topic that'll be coming out in a video in the next week or two talking about my views on deluxifications again. But this time, it's actually going to be a new spin, so be tuned for that. These are the druids that you're managing and controlling that you can upgrade from asymmetric powers as you're helping build your forest or manage the forest tree of the main namesake Oak as you're going along, and you can see that you're getting a loot insert and you're getting basically all these big deluxifications. Now, as a worker placement game with a few twists, is it worth your money and time right now on crowdfunding with no gameplay content or not? Well, it depends on how big of a fan you are of the deluxifications. So if you are, you should be checking it out. You got plenty of time to watch some videos. There you go. Now, going over to currently crowdfunding as well, we're talking about Malhya, the Lands of Legends. And this is from the makers of It's a Wonderful World. You may have heard of that game. Now, this is a foray into the tabletop plastic side of things with a RPG-style dungeon crawl-esque game based out of France. Again, this is doing extremely well when you go over to the crowdfunding page, almost $400,000 from a company that really isn't quite known for this type of game. And people seem quite enamored with it from a French as well as from an English aspect. And you can get a good sense of what is going on in this with several different elements that you're going to be playing through. The events, the weathers, the terrain, all are going to have a big influence as you're venturing across this land in over 100 hours worth of campaign adventures and dungeon crawl. And how do you manage things? How do you go about? And again, how much are you willing to pay? Because again, as a dungeon crawl plastic heavy game, the base content alone is going to cost you $155 even before shipping. Again, it looks like an absolutely fantastically beautiful game, and there's enough information on here in terms of the rulebook as well as a few how to play videos from the company themselves, and you're getting a ton of stretch goals as well. And so I don't see anything marked necessarily exclusive, but is that going to show up all at retail, or is it clearly also going to be a much higher price when all of this gets bundled into some sort of expansion? So again, something to consider. You can see a little bit more here in terms of how you're going to be using your hero, upgrading them, battling across the dungeons, and taking your place as the big champion. Rulebook is on the page as well. And so if you're interested, you still have, let's check this out real quick, less than 8 days or less than a week to go at this point. So there you go. Now, speaking of games that are being delivered to people, we'll get to that segment now. The first one and the most notable one over the last several weeks has been Return to Dark Tower. Speaking of restoration games again, this is again getting relatively critical acclaim. People are really enjoying it from a cooperative game, more so than it sounds like that people were originally thinking. They were thinking, you know, bar low and expectations low. And so the fact that it's outperforming has really made people rather pleased by it. Now, mind you, it cost a pretty penny on crowdfunding, and the electronics are definitely going to go for that on the secondary market, as well as if it ever shows up at a main retail side of things, which I don't know if it has been announced or not yet. I'm not up to date on it. And it's a game where I definitely would be interested in trying it, but as a cooperative game that's going to cost me, you know, an arm and a leg at this point, anywhere between $200 and $400 between, you know, the scalpers and between the secondary sellers at this point. It's a wait and see, and hopefully someone in my game group, spoilers, no one else in my game group buys anything, and spoilers, no one else in my game group buys stuff to bring over to my house. I won't be trying it anytime soon, but it'd be one that I'd be worth trading for. You know, I have a Ankh faithful pledge that maybe I'll trade for down the line or something like that. But again, if you're interested, expect to see more of it, and expect to see it on the Hotness for at least a little while it rides the hype wave. Next up, we have the other big one that is really getting all of the little acclaim right now. It's Creature Comforts from KTBG. And people are really liking the deluxeifications. It is a more entry-level worker placement with a kid-friendly theme, as hence their name in the first place. And so people are just really liking it from a regular gamer standpoint too. It did relatively well on crowdfunding. I think it got a couple $100,000, nothing to sneeze at. And it's offering just a little bit different, especially with a dice style worker placement in the first place. And again, there's a lot of clamoring. I think they just announced that the retail will be maybe later in April. Something along those lines. So if you missed it and deluxeifications aren't your main vibe, then you'll be able to pick it up shortly on the retail aspect, or try and trade or buy it on the secondary market before then. But I'll warn you, prices are already slowly trickling up from a secondary reseller standpoint. Speaking of secondary reseller standpoint, prices creeping up, we'll interrupt this crowdfunding delivery and we'll go over to Ark Nova. Now, why am I talking about Ark Nova? Apart from the fact that at the time of me filming this, it's ranked like 60th on Board Game Geek overall as the best game of all time. It's also just had its review by No Pun Included and Shut Up and Sit Down, and both coming to the same conclusion that they liked it, but they thought one of the decks, the main deck, was way too random and way too big, which again can be argued that it's not too big because otherwise you're just seeing the same cards over and over again. You can optimize your strategy and not have to tactically change your strategy as you're going along. But that was, I think, the big counter argument on what they thought of it, or something along those lines. I'm not putting words in their mouth, but if you want to go check it out, you can go check it out on their own channels. But again, it's still there. It's still going to be around there. We'll see where it ends up. but unlike a lot of these others I may have talked in this video, it appears to be standing very well the test of time, even though the test of time has been like 6 months. But there you go. It's the hotness, right? You got to do something to stay on top. Speaking of last things to be delivered lately, AEG has been now delivering the 4X meets card crafting, Dead Reckoning, spiritual successor to John DeClaire's other card crafting games like Mystic Vale or Edge of Darkness. And this is a pirate themed take on that. And again, people seem to be relatively pleased by what they're getting right now. I think the biggest concern for me was it was going to be playtime a little bit too much. And similarly, like with Edge of Darkness, the overhead was a little bit more than I thought could get routinely to the table. But people are really liking it, despite it using sort of a dice tower mechanic here in terms of dropping your cubes. And so I think people are relatively pleased. And again, it's going for, you know, more than what people paid on the secondary market currently. So they must be liking it from some aspect. But there you go. And we'll just kind of see how it holds up on the hotness. There you go. That is your news, everything new that you should know about on the retail, but also the crowdfunding side of things. If you haven't tuned into me, checking out every week all of the new crowdfunding games that do that and the upcoming crowdfunding games for the next week, please subscribe. Again, hit that like button. Help me help you, because I love talking about games, and I'd love to talk to more people and help spread the word. And just thank you for watching in the first place. That's all I got. Hopefully it's good enough for you. Hopefully you liked it, and hopefully I got nothing on the end ramble. That's about it today. Like I said, it's been a long week. It's been a long week, man. You have no idea. Okay. Peace out. Stay classy. Have a great day.